If you're a freelancer, should you charge hourly or a flat rate? That's one of the most common questions, and I'm going to make your answer very simple for you today. There is a time and a place for both, and by the end of this video, you're going to know which one to use when. I'm Chad Gavarlese. I'm the creator of Airlight TV, and I'm here to share with you how you can decide whether hourly or flat rate is best and when, because there are different times for both. I use both and I love both. So let's first talk about the advantages of charging an hourly rate. With hourly rates, you will be guaranteed to get a certain amount of money for the time you put in. Another advantage is that you can have more predictable income if you have a long-term contract with a client. So hourly is definitely best when you're doing ongoing work for somebody. And it also it's more predictable for the client if you set a max amount of hours each week and they get used to the fact that they're paying you week by week a specific amount to keep working for them. The next advantage is that it's the most flexible type of contract because you have a client that will hire you for something at the beginning. But then as time goes on, often new needs surface and priorities change. And if that happens, it's much easier to address a client's immediate needs and switch around your priorities when you're in an hourly contract. If you are in a fixed price contract for a project, but then it changed and all of a sudden something else became more important, they might just let you go as a freelancer working for them because now they realize that that project is not going to do anything for them anymore. Whereas when you're in an hourly contract, you can adjust the activities that you're doing with them on a dime, and you can now say, okay, now I'm going to do this for you because this is now a more immediate need. This is the value I can provide for you for this need. Rather than writing a whole new contract for a whole new project, it gets really messy with those kind of situations. Now we're going to discuss some disadvantages of an hourly contract. First thing is that the client might see you as more expensive, because I've had clients before where they see my rate and then they compare that to the hourly wage they're paying some of their employees and they think, wow, you're really expensive. But all that is that means that they're seeing me as an employee, and that's a fail on me for not communicating my value properly so that they're seeing me as a business partner opposed to an employee. But I'll talk about a little bit later, I'm going to talk about how you can avoid that, how you can reduce the risk for the client. And it's easier to pitch yourself as an investment when you're like, okay, the project's going to be $500, and once we're all done, within a month, you can expect that you'll get $1,000 back because I just revamped your whole website and it's going to increase sales. It's a little easier to explain to them the return on their investment when you have a fixed price contract opposed to an hourly contract. The next disadvantage of an hourly rate is that it's much more difficult to raise your rates when you're in an hourly contract because the client gets very used to paying you a certain amount per hour. And if you have a max amount of hours per week and you're typically putting in about the same amount of hours per week, they get used to that and they start budgeting for that. And so then if you raise their rates, now they have to redo their budget, and that can be frustrating. And so it's much easier to raise your rates on a project-based thing, because then when you get to your next project, you can then just tell them what the price is going to be, and they're not really going to question it like they would when you raise your hourly rate. But again, there are ways to do that. There are ways to raise your rate on existing clients, and that would definitely be in another video. So watch out for that. But there are strategies that will help you be able to raise your rates on existing clients. Okay, and now let's talk about the pros and cons of flat rates. So the first advantage is that with a flat rate fee, you can often, if you're really good at estimating your time, you can end up getting a lot more per hour than you would have gotten if you were in an hourly contract. I've had times where I had a flat rate project and I ended up getting about $200 per hour of the time I actually spent, and the client paid, maybe $500 for the project, and they still felt that they got their money's worth because of what I delivered them. They're like, yeah, this is totally worth $500. But they didn't realize that I only spent 2 to 3 hours on that project. Now, again, people might think, oh, that's such a ripoff. But what I delivered them was worth $500. So with flat rate projects, it's much easier to deliver kind of a value-based kind of situation where the emphasis is more on the deliverable, more on the product you're giving them, more on the return on the investment that you're giving them. The focus is more on the value you provide opposed to the time that you're putting in. And again, there are ways around that with an hourly contract that I'll get to in a little bit. Hold on. But it's easier with a flat rate fee to be able to, basically just get paid more per hour. And now, jumping to a disadvantage of a flat rate fee is that if you're not good at estimating your time and how long it's going to take you to do a certain project, you can get extremely taken advantage of with the flat rate fee where the client pays you $500, but it took you 20 hours. And if it took you 20 hours, that's $25 per hour, but your hourly rate might be $70 per hour. Okay, so, and then you can just feel like you're taken advantage of. And I've had that happen plenty of times where I totally misestimated how long it would take me for a project. Again, there are ways to be value focused even with an hourly contract. I mean, think about lawyers. A lawyer getting paid $200 an hour, nobody's questioning why they're paying the lawyer $200 per hour because they feel like they're getting a lot of value back for their expertise. And so again, there are ways around that, but it is easier to pitch a value-based kind of pricing when you're in a flat rate. And so flat rate projects, they're best for projects that have very clear deliverables, where the expectations are super clear, where it's very easy for you to estimate how much time it's going to take, and you're basically delivering a product in a specific amount of time, maybe 1 week, 2 weeks, 6 weeks. That's where flat rate projects tend to work best. So getting now to more disadvantages of flat rate projects, another disadvantage is that you have to keep redoing new contracts. Like if you set the terms for the initial contract and the project changes, you have to redo a whole new contract. There can just be a lot more administrative time spent when you're doing flat rate projects, especially if things change. And that can just be a super annoying pain. And I can tell you, projects are always changing. The client thinks they need one thing, and 3 weeks later they realize they need another thing. That happens all the time. And so as a solopreneur, you need to be very good at being able to anticipate a client's needs and being in the type of contracts that allow you to be flexible. So overall, the biggest disadvantage of a flat rate fee is that you're getting paid for what the client wants now rather than what the client needs down the road. And that's important to understand. So you have hourly, you have flat rate, and there's a third option I'll get to in a minute. But first, I'm going to follow through my promise and give you 4 ways that you can reduce the risk for a client on an hourly contract and ease some of their concerns about some of the risks regarding hourly contracts. Number 1, tell them that you're going to be in constant communication with them. One of the biggest frustrations that clients and businesses have when they hire freelancers is there are a lot of freelancers that just go dark. They drop off the map. They don't communicate continually with the client. So the client's getting all these, having these invoices coming in and having all these hours getting billed, but they actually have no idea what the freelancer is doing. And so what I like to do is I like to deliver a weekly report. Some clients just prefer a bi-weekly report. So establish with them how often they want to get a report from you, where you basically give them an update on, okay, over the last week, this is what I accomplished, and this is what results we're starting to see. Because obviously, if you're working on a specific project that might take 6 weeks, you don't have the final deliverable after the first week, but you can still update them on what you did with your time, and that will put them at ease regarding the hours that you're billing them. The next strategy that I've used that's really helped me to convince people to open up an hourly contract with me is to tell the client that they're only committing to you 1 week at a time. That you don't have to be developing, hey, we have a 6-month contract, which means that you have to commit to me as a freelancer for 6 months. No client likes to commit to a certain amount of time with a consultant, with a freelancer, with a solopreneur. So tell them that within this hourly contract, they're only committing to 1 week at a time, but they can always bail out after the first week, after the 6th week, after the 3rd week, and that will definitely ease their concerns about it. The third strategy that really works well is to tell a client that you would rather be able to adjust on a dime to fulfill their immediate needs and have a more flexible contract so that you can do that. That you can basically tell them, hey, I understand you want me to do this right now, but it's highly likely that you'll have other needs that surface as we're into this project. And I want to be able to immediately switch around my priorities and fulfill your most immediate needs without having to write whole new contracts and just telling them how it can get really messy if you're in a flat-based project fee, if things change and priorities change along the way. That one works really well, because then they realize, oh yeah, no, I would much rather that, because I understand that needs do change over time. And then the fourth way you can convince them to do hourly with you is to tell them that you're using some kind of time tracking app. No client wants to hear that you're just estimating your hours. I like to use Harvest. It's really good at just tracking my time, but then I can also bill invoices based on that time. And there are other apps as well. If you're on Upwork, Upwork has a time tracking app that takes pictures of your computer, which I don't like, because if I'm typing in passwords to log into certain accounts as I'm doing client work, there can be security issues with getting pictures taken of your computer. But with some clients, they prefer to be able to have that, and that's okay. If they need to take pictures of your computer for a time to build that trust, it's okay to be willing to do that. And that's one way that you can convince them that hourly is okay, if they have some kind of proof that you're working on their project when you're billing those hours. Now, if you have great communication skills and you can communicate to this client in a way that helps them to trust you from the get-go, they're much less likely to kind of scrutinize when you offer an hourly contract. So stay tuned for training on communication skills. Scroll down and watch all the videos I have on networking and communication skills, because if you are a master communicator, you usually don't have to worry about going the extra mile to convince your client to trust you, because you're just naturally really good at building that trust from the get-go. So that's an important part of all this. Now getting to the third option, you have hourly, you have flat-based. What is that mystery third option? Is to charge a weekly rate. Now, I'm not even going to go into the world of retainers and anything like that, because I've never used retainers. Lawyers can get away with it. Creative freelancers like myself that does stuff related to video and consulting, it doesn't work. Clients don't like it. It just doesn't work well. But the third option is a weekly rate, where you estimate how many hours you're going to devote to this client every week, and you decide what your hourly rate is, and then you give them a weekly fixed rate that even if you fall a little bit less than those hours or you go a little bit over, they have the same weekly rate. And that, I haven't really done that much. I know that in certain circumstances it can work well. I've known other freelancers that have done that and it's worked well for them. So it's something to explore as an option. I haven't done that because typically the kind of work that I do it's worked best just doing hourly with clients, because the projects are constantly evolving and changing over time. And so having even a fixed weekly rate was causing concern for clients. So I usually avoided that as well, but that is an option that could work well for you. Like I said before, my favorite type of contract is an hourly contract, especially when you're just getting started and your business is smaller. Here's what I like to do. I like to have a baseline of long-term clients where I'm likely to work with them for a solid year because of the type of work I'm doing for them. And so I don't have to worry about spending so much time looking for new clients constantly. So I basically look at what income I need in order to pay my expenses and support my family. I establish a baseline of income that matches what I need on just hourly contracts with what I call core clients. It's your core base of long-term clients. Then I like to, a couple of times a month, I like to get some project-based gigs where I have a very clear deliverable for a client and they pay me a fixed amount. And I like to do those project-based stuff throughout the year as extra income. But it can be very unstable to rely on the project-based stuff as just your only income. Overall, if you want to be a successful freelancer, make sure that you always focus on output rather than input. In other words, focus on the value you provide the client and the results you get them, rather than focusing on the time and effort you're putting in. If you like this video, make sure to go subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss a thing. Also go to airlight.tv where you can attend a workshop, you can follow my podcast and my blog and learn more there. Let me know in the comments section below which one you're going to use. Are you going to use hourly? Are you going to use flat rate? Do you have a different opinion than me? Let me know in the comment section. Let's have a conversation about this. I'm Chad Grevalese, and I'm glad to help you along in your solopreneur journey.